Football grounds carry history in their bricks, steel, and turf. In the UK, some of the most iconic clubs have stayed faithful to one home since the very beginning. No relocations, no new stadium gimmicks, just decades of passion rooted in the same patch of land. Let's dive in. 20. Anfield. When it was first built in 1884, Everton played here. But a rent dispute saw Everton move across Stanley Park, leaving the ground behind. That twist of fate gave birth to Liverpool FC in 1892, and the stadium has been their home ever since. From its earliest days, Anfield had a reputation for atmosphere, with locals cramming into open terraces. 19. Old Trafford. Also known as the Theatre of Dreams, and for good reason. Designed by the famous stadium architect Archibald Leach, it opened in 1910 with a capacity of 80,000. The Second World War left it in ruins after bombing raids, forcing United to share Manchester City's main road for nearly a decade. But Old Trafford was rebuilt and expanded, standing as a symbol of resilience. 18. Stamford Bridge. Built in 1877, it was originally used for athletics before being converted into a football ground. When Chelsea FC was founded in 1905, they became the first and only tenants. Unlike many other clubs, Chelsea has never changed stadiums. They have consistently played at Stamford Bridge. Today, it holds around 40,000, making it smaller than rivals Arsenal or Tottenham. 17. Villa Park. This has stood as one of the great English football cathedrals since the late 19th century. Built in 1897, it's seen Aston Villa's glory days, from early league titles to European triumphs in the 1980s. Villa Park is unique for its architecture. The Holt Inn once held over 20,000 standing fans, one of the largest terraces in Europe before all-seater rules came in. 16. St. James Park. Perched on a hill overlooking the city, St. James Park is impossible to ignore. Built in 1892, it has been Newcastle United's only home. Unlike most stadiums, it sits right in the heart of the city, towering over houses and streets. The asymmetrical stance, caused by expansion limits on one side, give it a distinctive look. 15. Bramall Lane. This is the oldest major stadium in the world still hosting professional football. Originally built for cricket in 1855, it staged its first football match in 1862, making it older than most clubs. Sheffield United moved in permanently in 1889, and they've never looked back. This ground has seen everything from the first floodlit matches in England to cup finals in the 19th century. 14. Elland Road. This has been home to Leeds United since their founding in 1919. Before that, it was used by other local teams, but Leeds made it their own. With a capacity of 37,000, it's one of the largest grounds outside the Premier League elite. The stadium witnessed Leeds' glory years in the 1960s and 70s, when they dominated English football. 13. Ewood Park. This has been home to Blackburn Rovers since 1890. One of the founding members of the Football League, Blackburn built a stadium that reflected their early importance. The ground was redeveloped heavily in the 1990s, turning it into a modern all-seater with a capacity of about 31,000. The Jack Walker stand remains the centerpiece, named after the man who bankrolled Blackburn's Premier League title in 1995. 12. The Hawthorns. This has been home to West Bromwich Albion since 1900. It was the first football league ground built in the 20th century. Its name comes from the hawthorn bushes that once covered the site. For years, the Hawthorns was known for its slope. The ground once held over 60,000, but today it seats about 26,000. 11. Turf Moor. This is one of the oldest football stadiums in the world still in use. Built in 1883, it became Burnley's permanent home in 1883, making it one of the longest continuous club stadium partnerships. The ground has hosted everything from First Division glory in the 1960s to European nights in 2018. It has a capacity of just over 22,000. 10. Portman Road. This has been played at Portman Road since 1884. That's over 140 years of history locked into one patch of land. What makes it fascinating is how this stadium grew slowly with the club itself. When Ipswich turned professional in 1936, Portman Road was already their permanent home. By the 1960s and 70s, under Sir Alf Ramsey and Bobby Robson, the ground was hosting European nights. 9. Fratton Park. This is one of those gritty old-school stadiums that looks like it belongs to another era, and that's because it does. Portsmouth has been here since day one in 1899. The main stand was designed by Archibald Leach, the most famous stadium architect of the early 20th century. His signature latticework iron designs can still be seen if you know where to look. 8. Carrow Road. Norwich City's Carrow Road is unusual because it was built at breakneck speed. In 1935, the club's old ground at the Nest was deemed unsafe. They needed a new stadium, fast. Local builders and volunteers threw everything into it, and Carrow Road opened just 82 days later. To this day, that's still one of the fastest stadium builds in English football history. 7. Kenilworth Road. Few stadiums are as quirky as Kenilworth Road. Opened in 1905, it's tightly hemmed in by residential streets. The most famous part? The Oak Road End, where away fans literally enter through garden gates between terraced houses. It feels more like sneaking into someone's backyard than going into a football stadium. 6. Loftus Road. This is one of the most compact stadiums in English football. Opened in 1917, it's been QPR's permanent home ever since. It was actually the first stadium in England to introduce all-seater stands back in 1981, well before it became mandatory. That shows how forward-thinking the club once was. With its steep stance, Loftus Road feels more like a box than a bowl. 5. Oakwell. This has been Barnsley's home since 1888, making it one of the older continuous stadiums still in use. Like many northern clubs, the stadium began as a simple pitch surrounded by embankments before stands were gradually added. By the 1990s, it had been fully modernized into an all-seater ground, but it still retains a lot of its traditional feel. 4. Deepdale. This is officially the oldest professional football stadium in the world still in continuous use. Preston North End moved here in 1878, just as football was becoming a recognized sport. It started out as a field used for cricket and rugby, but quickly became football's first great stronghold. Over time, Deepdale has gone through huge changes. 3. Hillsborough. This is one of the most famous and infamous grounds in England. Sheffield Wednesday moved here in 1899, and it has hosted everything from FA Cup finals to World Cup matches in 1966. At its peak, it could hold well over 60,000 fans. Of course, Hillsborough will always be associated with the 1989 disaster, one of the darkest days in football history. 2. Bloomfield Road. It was opened in 1901, and Blackpool has never left. Its golden period was in the 1950s, when the club had stars like Stanley Matthews and Stan Mortensen. The FA Cup final of 1953, known as the Matthews Final, is forever tied to Blackpool, and Bloomfield Road was where those players honed their craft. 1. The Valley. This has a unique story. When it opened in 1919, it was little more than a massive chalk pit. Volunteers and supporters literally dug the terraces themselves, creating one of the largest open banks in English football. By the 1930s, the Valley was regularly drawing crowds of over 50,000, making it one of the biggest grounds in London. Football grounds aren't just steel and seats, they're living monuments. These stadiums have carried generations of fans, witnessed triumphs and heartbreak, and stood firm while everything else in football changed. In an era of shiny new arenas, there's something powerful about clubs that never moved, never abandoned the ground where it all began. Thanks for watching. If you love the content, please make sure that you subscribe, like, share, and comment. See you in the next one.